Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever you are in the world, we want to welcome you to our webinar today, How Structured Collaboration Delivers Better Business Outcomes. I'm Tom Murphy. I'm General Manager and Editorial Director for our CMSWire at Simpler Media Group. I focus a lot on this area. Collaboration is a big part of what we report on. We also report on a lot of other areas, however. Get into that in a moment. Before we get into the program today, I want to go over our agenda. We'll have a few minutes for introductions here, maybe not even 5. We'll spend about 35 to 40 minutes speaking with Matt Wenger, Jim Lundy, and Kim Glover. And then you're the stars of the show for the final quarter of the show, or final third, with a live Q&A. If you have questions at any time during the program, please send them along via WebEx, using the Q&A module on the right. You can also use the chat, whatever works for you. Send it to the host, and she will take care of it for us. This program is sponsored by our friends at ThinkTank. They make collaboration software that transforms the way people work together. It's a great organization. Please check them out at thinktanknet.net. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our all-star lineup of speakers today. Matt Wenger is CEO of ThinkTank. He's formerly president of Open Global and managing partner for Result. He's an award-winning innovator with sales, marketing, finance, and operations experience. Jim Lundy, who I had the pleasure to interview just about 10 days ago, is founder, CEO, and lead analyst of Aragon Research. He has over 29 years, let's just call it almost 30, Jim, of technology and management experience as a vendor, user, and analyst. He spent 12 years at Gartner, and he formed and led the collaboration and social software research team there. And of course, we have Kim Glover, Manager of Knowledge Management for FMC Technologies. Kim has 25 years of experience in the collaboration space and has helped FMC win America's Most Admired Knowledge Enterprises, the MAKE Award, in 2013. Now it's my pleasure to turn the program over to Matt Wenger, our first speaker today. And Matt, I'm going to give you the controls here.
Great. Thanks a lot, Tom. Welcome, everybody, and thank you very much for joining today. It gives me great pleasure to also thank my esteemed panelists as we walk you through a subject that we at ThinkTank are extremely passionate about. What gets us up every day at ThinkTank is this challenge of how do we as leaders enable our people and our teams to be all that they can be, to deliver consistently amazing outcomes together when we come together to work on joint initiatives or shared objectives. If you think about the individuals in the organization as information systems full of knowledge, experience, ideas, and information, and we think about the reasons that we bring them together to collaborate, with the idea being that bringing them together to affect a joint outcome, we're going to unleash synergies, exponential results from those people. There's 2 challenges with that we run into, inherent in nature. The first is in ourselves, that when we bring people together, we become suddenly limited by Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What are those ideas that we have as an information system that we're too scared to share because they don't fit in, because they might be silly, or they might affect our ego or our status, or they might not be seen to be relevant to the group? The second limitation that we experience is in our operating environment. And we believe now that when we pull more and more people together, that we're going to be affecting a greater outcome of our collaboration. But the reality is the more people we bring together, the more complex we make that collaboration. and we add more and more limits and obstacles to a successful outcome. So our challenge is, how do we, in this environment, deliver greatness? Over the last 25 years, in working with some of the leading organizations around the world, we've studied the impact of software-based collaboration on performance in teams. There are 3 pillars that we see as necessary to delivering breakthrough results consistently from our organization. The first is that we need to create a platform or provide a platform that enables secure, anytime, anywhere participation from our best thinkers around the world. The second is we have to create an environment of open, honest engagement, enabling people to reach past those fears and share their best ideas and participate fully in whatever collaboration that we're engaging them on. The third is providing structured collaboration, the subject of what we're going to be talking a lot about today. And when we talk about structured collaboration, what do we mean? Imagine all the reasons why we engage a large professional services firm in our organization. For the most part, while there's many benefits that can come from that, the reason we reach out is for their expertise around best practice methodology, those structures or those common best practice use cases that have been proven out over time to deliver consistently amazing results from our people. So pulling people together into a strategic planning session or risk assessment, change management programs or innovation programs. What these firms are doing is bringing their best practice methodologies to you and helping your team align along that function to producing an amazing outcome. And what we're going to be talking to you today about is, at a global level, what's going on in structured collaboration. What do we mean when we talk about structured collaboration at a global and trending level? And also walk you into some specific use cases, particularly around FMC technologies, and how they're using structured collaboration to transform enterprise performance. Thank you very much again for joining us today. I look forward to your questions and to the outcomes from the session. Thank you.
I'm going to turn the program over to Jim Lundy from Aragon Research to lead the next section. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Matt. It's a great pleasure to be here with CMSWire and ThinkTank to talk about this idea of getting higher performance and faster outcomes with structured collaboration. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about some of the trends and technologies that are kind of coming to the fore, and we do see structured collaboration emerging. You could even say re-emerging as a trend, and that's one of the things we're going to certainly talk about today, because as many of you know that are on this webinar, there's just a vast sea of tools out there, and many of your business users or yourselves are constantly on the hunt for that magic potion that's going to get you to that better outcome. And so that's really what we're going to talk about today. And really one of the things that we would say is the future of work is collaborative. It's always been collaborative, but the definition of collaboration is changing. And what we see is, instead of the ad hoc nature coming to fore, we're seeing more focus by business leaders saying, look, I want to get this work done. Clearly, mobile is one of the big aspects of collaborative work. Social is one of the terms that's been out there for a long time, too. In fact, going back, to my days at the Big G, in 2005, social was kind of like a new word. It was still blogs and wikis, but the idea of blending in a focus to get people to basically agree on things versus just sharing things is really one of the big observations we've been watching over the last 24 months. And we've got some predictions we're going to share with you today. But as a former soccer coach, as a global leader in a number of companies I've been at, Xerox, Gartner, getting the team to coalesce around an idea or an approach is very, very hard. And again, this is one of the concepts that we think structured collaboration is going to bring to the table. So again, collaboration isn't new, but teams that move fast are going to do more collaboration. They're going to do it with more people, and they're going to get to those outcomes faster. So the major trends that we're going to talk to really are nothing really new. Collaboration. Again, I talked about the shift to cloud models, where it's cloud-to-cloud integration versus custom development. The shift from not just mobile but to connected devices, Internet of Things, and then this idea of software that gets smarter over time, predictive applications. And so our big thing relative to where these trends are going is that computers and humans are going to work closer together than ever before, and that technology, including collaboration, is going to become a competitive weapon, much more so today in business than it ever has been. And again, one of the things we would say, though, is a lot of businesses today are not necessarily looking at technology as a competitive weapon. The ones that are getting an advantage. So if we look at the workplace and computing in general, we've got a couple lenses in this slide. Clearly, the modalities in computing have shifted. We're about to enter the wearable IoT era next year. Lots of hype around watches and drones. But the things we see relative to work are more voice interactions, smarter software applications, i.e. predictive. And when it comes to work, we see digital assistants coming online, definitely in 2015. We see that, again, the predictive applications becoming pretty ubiquitous by the end of 2015, and this idea of structured collaboration coming online, where teams can get to those outcomes faster, I think represents a fundamental shift in the traditional approach to collaboration. And again, we're going to certainly talk about that. Many would argue, and I talked with Tom the other day relative to the piece he wrote. Email is still entrenched in culture. However, as you look at millennials coming online, and we had a couple of interns at Aragon over the summer, they're rejecting the email culture. In fact, they even said to me, we really don't want to work groups. We just have to sit there and look at emails all day. That's not really what I'm looking for in a career. So, again, the millennials are driving us to these new approaches. And again, we see a lot of business users, managers, individuals, finding tools on their own that are helping them get a perceived edge. And so, again, this shift is a fundamental shift that we're seeing. And again, whether you use a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, or all three, and increasingly we're seeing people use all three, it's the software that really is going to be the driver that's going to get you to a competitive advantage. So what is this idea of structured collaboration? Having covered all types of collaboration for years, when you look at informal collaboration, was there ever really an ROI done on email? And the answer I usually give is no. But if you look at chat and social networks, which essentially are all forms of informal collaboration, you look at the live collaboration, unified communications, web conferencing, video conferencing, which brings people together from remote areas. And then you look at this whole area of project and task management, which certainly, project management professionals live and die by, but a lot of other people have kind of rejected. And so when you look at structured collaboration, how do you blend, all of this together? And I think, it's ThinkTank and others that are starting to come to the fore in showing what they've been able to do in a lot of different use cases. This is definitely a trend. Our prediction is that by the end of 2016, 40% of enterprises will adopt structured collaboration as one of the new ways forward. So you do see a couple of categories starting to come together. And again, we'll talk more about this. We also see mobile collaboration. So, is the social era giving way to the mobile era, the rise of mobile messaging? Again, a lot of these trends start in the consumer. We're also seeing a huge demand for mobile video. Certainly, you can't turn on the television and not see an ad for watch the NFL on TV on your mobile device. If you're in the U.S. and if you're in Europe, you're probably seeing, Manchester United watch that on your mobile device. So, but another thing that is popping up relative to that is, how do I make this all contextual? If millennials only want to text, and seriously they really do, how do you make it contextual relative to work? And again, that's one of the things that sometimes it's called social business, making it relevant to the work process. is one of the things that is, part of this new race. So mobile is not, again, one of the new work modalities, and again, software is adapting to fit that. And then when we look at the area of smarter software, we think we're in the middle of the predictive application area, really kind of just getting started. So if I say, you say, Jim, what is that? It's about taking machine learning algorithms, applying it to software so the software can recognize what's going on and maybe make some suggestions, recommendations, or even, give you some facts if it's a cognitive app. So again, we think that the race is on. There are a lot of announcements this fall, and again, we think that in collaboration, again, the software is going to get smarter, and that by the end of next year, many software providers will have some kind of predictive capability in there. So again, this idea of the application doesn't just sit there and wait for you to do something, it's actually getting smarter. The cognitive era kicks in a lot later, where again, you train a computer application to do a certain task, like maybe help diagnose cancer, or help in, very intensive data situations. And again, there's a big race on between some of the biggest players there. But right now, today, the thing we would focus on for you is to say, okay, what is going on with this predictor thing, and is it going to be able to help me? Being able to predict which sales leads are going to close is a great example of a category that didn't exist a year ago, predictive lead scoring. And it's kind of on fire right now in sales enablement, and that's probably the best example I could share with you. Say, well, give me an example. If we talk about just some of the technologies for a second, there's a lot of things that are coming to the fore, and this is our technology arc. It's a little bit of an eye chart, but we try to track technologies that are emerging, that are in the adoption phase, and they're maturing. And when we look at this idea of collaboration, there's a lot of things kind of all over the place. I didn't highlight all of them because there's some video stuff that's popping up in the emerge and adopt. You've got content, you've got innovation management, you've got enterprise social networks that are highlighted, and then all the way over on the right, web and video conferencing. By the way, we think that by 2020, about 50% of all conference rooms, 1 out of 2, will have some kind of video conferencing in them. And again, this idea of trying to connect people, price points coming down, the idea of the open workplace where you need a collaborative room, does the conference room become that collaboration center, again, because of extreme price drops, higher immersiveness, because of things like 4K and 5K displays. So there's a lot going on here relative to that. But again, this brings this idea together of there's, again, got to be a better way to try to make all this come together. And this is really what, we spend a lot of time talking to enterprises about is, hey, what's the best way forward? Clearly, one of the answers is just because, some of the large tech titans say this is the way you should do it, isn't really the answer. Business users are kind of rejecting that. So when we talk about this whole workplace thing, again, the idea of tools versus process, this is really, I think, one of the crux, and Matt kind of teed it up when he showed some of his intro slides, and he's going to be talking a little bit later after Kim. And what I want to introduce to you is the idea of the, traditional workplace tools, the lenses, that I've always looked at where, you've got collaborative capabilities, you've got content that makes the world go around, and then you've got generally a way of accessing that through a portal or today probably through a mobile app. And then you have this whole thing of I've got to decide how I'm going to do something, as a business leader, where this idea of structured collaboration comes into play. Having been a former soccer coach, I kind of try to look at it as how do I get the best team on the field when it comes to making decisions. Again, even harder, which is what are the criteria I'm going to use to do that? How do I get everybody in the boat, thinking the same way? And again, a lot of the tools today don't do that. They're just there to help you facilitate or share information, but they're not going to help you get to that outcome. And so when we look at this idea of next generation structured collaboration, bringing some process stuff together with those workplace tools is almost, the best of both worlds. We think it's not necessarily new. I think ThinkTank isn't a new firm, but they've been around. But there's a lot of other things that are popping up. And again, we think that this approach, which is, again, taking some of the best practices from some of these other areas where, again, people that are doing big, launches, shipping a Boeing jet, getting that into production and manufacturing. I mean, that's a very structured process, but a lot of work today is not structured. It's ad hoc. It's interrupt driven. And then how do you blend those two things together? And so we think that enterprises that use structured collaboration are going to get to the right outcome 50% faster than those that use traditional approaches. Because again, the mistake-based approach, which is I tried that, it didn't work, I'm going to go do something else. Whereas if you can apply a methodology that is proven, you probably have at least a 50% chance of doing it better, but you can also do it faster. And the big thing today is speed. It's very hard to teach that. So if you can get a tool that's going to enable that, we think that gives you a competitive advantage. Now, I throw out this idea of mobile as a new portal because when we look at, again, workplace tools, we do think that mobile is going to be one of the major new ways forward. Today, it's touch-based or touching a tablet or a phone. We think voice becomes the new thing. And again, being able to talk to the computer via mobile device and get feedback and interact with other people will actually speed things up. And so when we look at this whole idea of collaboration, you can't ignore the fact that mobile is one of those new ways forward. We think mobile apps will be disruptive. In fact, they are being disruptive. The fact that you can order a taxi today with a mobile app is disrupting the traditional analog taxi industry. I mean, and again, a couple of years ago, it was, depositing checks with your mobile app for your Chase Bank app. So again, a lot has changed, but the reason this is so strategic is this is an example of technology as a weapon, adding the structured collaboration on top of that. And again, you're getting into some conversations around we're moving faster. Another thing relative to, one of the benefits is, getting out of this, trend of shifting out of email. When Tom and I talked the other day for his piece, I said that by 2025 we thought that, email is going to start to really wind down, but we're still stuck in the middle of that. And today, when you look at knowledge, there's rivers and rivers of content that are stuck in email systems. So when you look at this approach of structured collaboration, where you can get more of the information out of those email servers and into a collaborative environment, there's going to be more knowledge out there. And again, generally, there's going to be more people that are going to be involved, which means you're probably going to find that data point that helps to drive that decision. But getting out of this email approach, and I mentioned earlier about the millennials, again, it's not a trend that's been coming for the last 4 years. Millennials are not, they're not used to this email approach, and they're actually more driven towards more instantaneous interaction through chat and other applications. So again, this is another reason why we think millennials will be one of the ones that really are interested in looking at and adopting structured collaboration. And so when you try to put it all together and say, well, what does this all mean? We think that, again, innovation is the number one issue CEOs face today. And how do you get to those new services, those future products? Do you do the Big Bang Theory today, which is what a lot of firms do? Yeah, I've got my chief engineer. We're going to, we figured it out. But what if the chief engineer is wrong? So again, using structured collaboration to drive your innovation strategy is probably the biggest takeaway I would share with you. Because, again, it can help you figure out, I'm in an existing market now, but does that market shift? Software company this week introduced a new way of doing payments, and we think that's going to disrupt a lot of the credit card companies. And did they see that coming? Some of them did, some of them didn't. But again, the idea of if you apply what we talked about today with structured collaboration to drive innovation, you layer mobile on top of that, and you've got a pretty interesting discussion going forward. And again, so when you say, what's this all mean? The future of work is, we think there's a couple things, looking at your office space, looking at video, looking at mobile, which we've talked about a couple times, embracing your millennials, and then looking at, again, your collaboration structure and approach, and how do you make that, a little less informal, a little more formal relative to, again, bringing the people together with the process. And again, we think it is one of the key things is going to drive faster outcomes. I mean, you're certainly going to hear more from us outside of this webinar. But again, this is probably the next wave beyond social collaboration is getting these people together and getting them to agree on how they're going to work and drive the business forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Tom.
Thank you very much. I think we're actually going to be, this slide may be a little bit out of order. Let's see what the next one says.
No, it's me. I'm here. Structured collaboration. But first, I want to tell you just a little bit about our company. As you can see on the slide there, we're an equipment, engineering, and services company that serves the energy sector. Our clients are the world's major operating companies, the ones who do subsea and surface drilling. We've got facilities all around the world to serve those clients, and we're really proud of the value that we're helping them create. And we're also proud of the growing external recognition that we're getting for being an innovative company and also for knowledge management. So today I'm going to talk to you about three things, briefly too, about how our knowledge management initiative supports our core values, some of the ways that our structured collaboration enables the flow of knowledge here at FMC Technologies, and then finally I'm going to show some actual collaboration needs and the toolbox of solutions that we have to meet them. So you saw the overview slide a minute ago, and I hope you noticed that we have about 20,000 employees. But as recently as just 2009, we only had about 10,000 employees, and that's some really explosive growth. Well, during this time, our executive team realized that we could be a lot more productive and also create more customer value if we had a company-wide knowledge management initiative that would help us leverage our people and leverage their knowledge across the corporation. So I want to shift now. You see on the right hand of the slide there, those are our core values. And we have underlying expected behaviors for all of those core values. And I want to just quickly read you a couple of them that are about collaboration. And I think you'll see that they're very reflective of what Jim was just talking about. Here at FMC Technologies, we're expected to proactively share experiences. We're expected and encouraged to interact and to work in teams, but also to have that guided by clear direction and structured feedback. And we're expected to embrace and to share best practices. So you'll see as well when you look at the circle there of our core values, which are in a circle because they all work together and none of them are more important than the others, that collaboration is positioned right next to innovation. And I wanted to share as well one of our core beliefs around innovation. We believe that the best is yet to be invented. So that's the kind of environment that we work in. But I want to go back to collaboration and dive just a little deeper. So you can't just tell people, let's go collaborate, and then expect it to happen and to magically create business value and customer value. So that's why our executive staff sponsored the Knowledge Management Initiative around 4 years ago. And today we have almost 60 global collaborative networks that support our major business functions in a system that we call the EDGE. They're networks, and to me, they're really the epitome of structured collaboration. In fact, we require a business charter with specific objectives that must be achieved before we can launch a new network. And these networks, which I'll talk about a little more in a minute, they actually enable employees to work together and to solve problems. The networks aren't really the sites within the system, the EDGE. The networks are the people, the communities of people within our company that do the same work or interact in the same value stream. So onto our team. Our knowledge management team here is called the Center for Innovative Collaboration. And I've included our vision there on the slide because they were talking about the future of work and sort of what the vision is. And I wanted to share this with you because we really believe that we can help drive this culture of execution through what we call innovative collaboration, and maybe it should also be called structured collaboration, and that it can unleash the value and the potential of our people. And by people, we don't just mean employees, we mean our partners, our suppliers, our third-party. So what you see now is sort of, as I've titled the slide, collaboration and the flow of knowledge. And it made me smile when I saw Jim's slide about rivers of content in email. And they do get buried in email, and they might never surface again in a traditional old email-oriented, unstructured collaborative system. So that made me really feel like we're on the right track here. But before I kind of walk you through this flow, I want to point out that the launch of the Knowledge Management Initiative that I mentioned about 4 years ago was so successful that the Director of Knowledge Management, who's my boss, was tapped to lead the new FMC Technologies University. And you see the image there at the bottom of the slide. So he formed our new then at least, Learning Infrastructure and Knowledge Management Organization. And it's been really great to align knowledge management with corporate learning in the same org, because that really enables this life cycle that the picture here is depicting of knowledge sharing. Well, if you start at the left there with the edge, which is, again, those discussion forums, so from idea there in the edge to validated best practice, which could be shared in our corporate wiki, the well, to then what you might call instructional learning on the use of that best practice with the university. So just a brief tour through how that might work. Discussions in the edge, in their collaborative forums, they can and they often do actually produce actionable outcomes or decisions or better ways of working, just as Jim was saying earlier. And then those new processes or information or context can be shared in that wiki, the well, and that contextual information is very helpful to employees. And as with the edge, I just want to point out, the well is architected. It's got a series of network-based business and technical categories managed by the very same leadership teams that manage those 60 forums I was talking about in the edge. This ensures the validity and the accuracy of posted content. So discoveries and better ways of working can then make their way into training courses that are sponsored by FMC Technologies University. And this supports innovation. Every time we adopt a new process or an idea, there's a new baseline there, a new baseline above or just below the edge, if you will, a new sort of collective understanding of how to do things upon which more innovation can happen. Because innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it always happens on top of what you already know. It supports quality as well, this flow of knowledge. And if you think about how discoveries and process improvements can come in, they can come in directly from the edge with an idea or a question, come in directly through the wiki with something an employee has posted and then has had validated by a moderator or a subject matter expert. And then what can happen is that space in the middle and the space outside is our formal systems, and they can be updated in a much faster way because employees are connected to the people who lead those systems. All of these conduits and ways that we can pull content from our employees makes us faster, makes us tougher, makes us smarter as a company. And it is a competitive edge, as Jim was saying. So on my last slide, which again is a little bit of an eye chart, I apologize for that. I wanted to talk about what Jim said in his article last week, which is a great article in CMSWire. You can find it. He said and I'm reading this here, it's more about how you bring people together to get common ground and to get something done. We couldn't agree more. And there's another quote about collaboration, which is an African proverb that's really great. I want to share it with you. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's really powerful about collaboration, but we want to go fast and far. So we've extended our knowledge management initiative, and it includes now what we're calling facilitated collaboration. And we think this allows us to reap more of the business value from collaboration. In fact, I was very interested to see Jim's data there that using it for decision support can get us there 50% faster. We believe that too. In fact, we've taken to calling facilitated collaboration accelerated collaboration. And I think Matt was kind of making that same point. So the business needs that you see here on the slide are just a few that we've actually supported with our facilitated collaboration and our knowledge management toolbox. You can imagine in a company of our size and complexity, probably a lot like all of your companies, the demand for structured outcomes and business results is enormous. And of these examples here, they're all real. We might need to help determine market differentiators or prioritize business needs or support a group that's working on identifying customer pain points and ways that they can help solve them. We might need to use structured collaboration to define requirements for a new project or to evaluate feedback coming in from internal or external customers and develop action plans. We might need to generate ideas to update the charter for a collaborative network and make sure that is current and relevant and attacking business goals that are relevant today. Or we might need to brainstorm on how to put an innovative idea that came in through the discussions in the Edge into actual play within the business. So that brings us to our toolbox there on the right. Like the slide says, the outcome should really drive the decision about how to collaborate and which tool is the best. That's really important, and I think Jim touched on that as well. So you've heard briefly about the top of the list there, our discussion forums in the Edge and our wiki, the Well, and they are their own forms of structured collaboration because of the way they're architected, because they have people who manage and moderate and watch what's coming in and seize business opportunities and pull them into training. Well, our facilitated collaboration options include web conferencing, which we can use to host virtual training, knowledge transfer sessions like our internal facilitated collaboration are also face-to-face. And we do use ThinkTank. In fact, it's been used to help achieve almost all of the outcomes listed there in our needs bubbles. And other tools in our KM and collaboration toolbox include the intranet, of course, an auto-categorization tool to help employees find things, which isn't really our whole list, and to choose the right one for each collaboration need. An example is if we want to collect close-ended feedback from thousands of our employees, we'll use a survey, like we did with our knowledge sharing survey last year. And then we might use focus groups to evaluate the results, and that would be structured collaboration around what to do. But if we're supporting the leadership of a particular organization and helping them hone in on their strategy for the next fiscal year, ThinkTank would be a much better tool. And it's this combination of approaches that enables agility and truly flexibility in reaching the right business outcomes. And I have to confess that there are so many more aspects of this that I could share with you and would like to share with you, but the time is limited and I need to hand it back over to Matt. And I want to thank CMSWire and all of you for letting me talk to you today about what we're doing with collaboration here at FMC Technologies.
Great, thanks a lot, Kim, and we're really grateful for the time you've taken to join us today. Thank you again. We're going to skip our second poll, again, due to our technology problems that we're having. And what I want to do now, there's been a number of questions regarding structured collaboration and what do we mean by structured collaboration, what kind of features and functionalities does the structured collaboration platform provide. And so in ThinkTank, our what we call a collaboration as a service platform, essentially what we do is we enable leaders to construct sessions using best practice collaboration building blocks, essentially. So it might be crowdsourcing tools, two-way presentations that enable feedback from the audience, voting and assessment tools, collaborative matrices, almost imagine it like a spreadsheet where you can work collaboratively in that spreadsheet in real time, wiki-type functionality, document sharing, these types of things. And what you do is you pull them together into a timeline framework where essentially you say, first we're going to talk about this. First, I'm going to gather all your feedback on this question. Then we're going to look at that feedback and we're going to assess it or analyze it. We're going to theme some of the contributions. We're going to take those themes now and rate them and prioritize them. And then from there, we're going to lay out action plans and these types of things collaboratively together. So at a very high level, that is what we mean when we say structured collaboration. This is a little look at what our platform looks like. Once you've done that and you've crafted this session, arranged around achieving a particular objective, then what you do is you invite your best thinkers. You think, who are the best people to participate in this? And you invite them to come to that virtual environment that you've now created. And as a leader, then you lead them through, step by step, through these collaborative activities that you've now built. And they can participate typically via their laptop, via a tablet, or via a smartphone, anywhere, anytime, anywhere. One key attribute, of these collaboration platforms is that they must allow both synchronous and asynchronous participation in the same platform. What we find with structured collaboration is that there's times that you can get everybody participating at the same time, but again, if we're going to get the maximum outcome, what we want to enable is people to come in and participate, see the questions, fill out the responses, organize theme, participate in their time as well. Next step is that you then run this session, enable the session, expose it to the world, and enable the participants to now participate, entering their ideas, playing off of each other's ideas, contributing and building on each other's ideas until they arrive at the maximum outcome. And so that's just the kind of the fast overview. And if you can imagine, essentially what you end up doing in this case is building a best practices library for how you're going to engage people around specific tasks in the enterprise. And so what we've done at ThinkTank over the last 25 years is amassed a library of these best practices. And working with our partners such as Deloitte, Ernst & Young, Bain, to amass these best practice templates where we can then share these with you in order to then extract the best outcomes for your teams around particular business outcomes. So be that strategic planning, be that your risk management process, be that your innovation process, and finding neat new ways to actually create synergies between some of those processes, where your strategic planning process is now actually embedding parts of your risk management process. And you're engaging much more people around the world simultaneously in these things, where before you might have only had 20 or 50 people participating in those sessions, you can now have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people participating at less cost than you would have even with the 50. So it's these types of things that we're seeing major impacts. And when we look at the impacts, over the last couple of decades, working with the world's leading academics in these areas, we've built a framework to actually assess collaborative processes and say, how are your people coming together right now to collaborate? What's happening at the input phase of a collaboration, the analysis phase of collaboration, decision-making and execution? And then how can providing structure, that open, honest engagement, and that scale that we talked about earlier transform the speed, the quality, and the economy of effort at which that group can now work together to produce an amazing outcome? And what we can show is we look at your current process, how that's actually functioning, and what you can show is that when you measure that against that index, and then come back now and see how it's, particular parts of that process, how people are coming together and sharing their input, conducting analysis, and making decisions. We bring in a best practice structure, a best practice framework on this platform, enable those people to now engage in this new way and totally transform the speed and the quality and the economy of effort at which they conduct that task. And so at the end of the day, when we measure again, we can see that we transform that process. And if we look at, sorry, I'm just going to take you to, maybe the moderator can just make sure that I'm on the next slide. But if we look at some of the casework that we've built up over the course of the last decade, we've got hundreds and hundreds of cases with some of the world's largest organizations, like Boeing, where we were able to reduce process timeframes and cycle times by 91%. I mean, it's those types of things. The amount of padding that goes into these processes due to managing politics, due to managing time zones and not engaging the right people, not being able to get all the right ideas out of the people the same in a manageable format. Is posed such a challenge that we can strip that out. IBM, same kind of thing, 92% reductions in cycle time savings. Procter & Gamble, where we focused on actually the innovation process, and what we can measure is using structured collaboration on an open and honest engagement platform, is you can increase ideation and innovation in a group by 950%. So it's 1,000 times the number of ideas they're able to generate out of the same group of people. And again, like Kim, I could stand up here and talk for hours about the things that we've done for NASA or creating constitutions for countries using structured collaboration. So we encourage you to reach out to us. Where we love talking about this and we love understanding where we can help you guys to transform your processes and your performance across your teams globally. Again, thank you all very much for joining. Thank you to my fellow panelists. Tom, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Matt. And that was just a tremendous presentation. Jim, Kim, Matt, all of you, it's really great to see what the outcome of all your thinking is. And now we're going to hear from our audience. It's time for our audience to step up, and we've already got a few questions from them. I'm going to start working through those. And the first one comes from C. Birch. Can you specifically define what structured is? What makes it structured? And I think that's a good question. We went over this during the presentation, but maybe Jim, would you explain to us what makes it structured?
Yeah, Tom. I mean, I'll give you my view at a high level, and I think maybe others can dive in a little closer. So the idea of bringing together an approach, which in some cases, may be like, some of the techniques that are involved with voting. Hey, we're going to look at this approach. Bringing people together. It's more than assigning tasks. Again, which is not new, has been around for a long time, but the idea of getting the group to agree on an approach. So instead of agreeing before the meeting or saying, oh yeah, all that stuff we did in the meeting, we're not going to do any of that, but in the meeting, and there's also the approach of getting consensus. And so that's my high level descriptor of what I think and what we think is going to happen.
I think that's a really good descriptor, too. Kim or Matt, would you want to add anything to that?
I'd be happy to add mine, and it's quick. I think it has to have a process. It has to have defined outcomes. The process can utilize any number of tools from the toolbox, but you do have to have standard approaches for facilitating that collaboration, and it has to have stakeholders who actually have a stake. That would be my quick definition for structured collaboration.
Good one.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is I would just emphasize process. I think the others have covered it absolutely adequately, and I would really emphasize it's the process. And one can even say the product of structured collaboration actually is the process. And it's by engaging in that and by enabling that people suddenly gain more confidence in what it is that you're doing and the outcomes that you're actually achieving. So absolutely.
It's been about 20 years since Bill Joy over at Sun Microsystems said technology is easy, people are hard. And I think that's a truism that lasts through today. And here's a good example of it. We all work with collaboration technologies quite a bit. But Stephanie Rothfuchs, who's in our audience today, says the term social has a negative connotation, and so it's tough to sell to many organizations, no matter how strongly employees want to use those types of tools at work. Have you encountered a shift in terminology to get away from that? Anybody want to comment on that confusion between social media and how we're using social in this context?
Yeah, this is Jim. I'll try that one, Tom. Well, what I would say is, first, I think the word collaboration is coming back into the fray. I mean, we've always looked at social as a form of collaborating, and I do think there's still a misunderstanding in the market of social media, public social media versus private social networks. But the idea of that's one form of collaboration, and looking at the mission of what's the outcome going to be. I do think that's one of the ways to probably sell it. Even if you look at other things, I mean, there's, in terms like we're going to use this approach to drive, better outcomes, to come up with some of the better best practices. But I think that's one of the ways I'd probably look at it, use the word collaboration more in the discussions, and people say, yeah, well, there's some social aspect, but that's not really what we're talking about.
Right. Kim, I got a good question for you here. This comes from Prasad Sakaraya, who says, what are the core product features a platform must support to drive structured collaborations? Great question, Prasad. Thank you.
With the demonstrated ability to provide structured brainstorming, that it would have an anonymous capability, that we felt that would encourage increased collaboration in a multicultural environment like ours. We wanted the capability for both dynamic or real-time and asynchronous brainstorming. We wanted customized voting processes, ratings, rankings, vote distribution with tables and graphs, and the ability to really slice and dice what we're hearing in ways that make it more meaningful. We wanted the capability, and this might seem like a minor thing, but to display attachments and interact with other types of content like images or PowerPoint or Word. And we also wanted, and this one was really, really important, something that would allow us to customize for our company-specific methodology and company-specific project tracking and brainstorming sessions and our impact quality methodology. Those things were really important to us for choosing this kind of online structured collaboration.
Great answer. Matt, any quick additions to that?
No, I keep asking me second. It saves me energy.
I like that. I like your spirit, sir. Well, let's move on to a question from Aaron Kreitzberg. By the way, we have more questions in queue than we have minutes left in the program, so we'll get to as many as we can. If we don't get them to all of them, we'll email them to our guests and ask them to respond to you personally.
Tom, do you mind if I just step in and just ask, provide one more answer to the social question? Because I think it actually is quite interesting.
Yes, I'd like that.
Yeah, one of the things when we get polled by kind of the Fortune 5,000 type companies, and we get engaged by them, and a lot of the times what they've found is they've invested heavily in a lot of these social or even what we would call asynchronous collaboration type tool sets like document sharing, SharePoint, those types of things. And the challenges that they're really struggling with is the ROI on that. They really are struggling to link how those investments are converting into accelerated or better business outcomes. They kind of get this general sense of, maybe people are collaborating more, but they don't know what's coming from that. And, it's kind of like email too. And it's not to say that those aren't good investments. It's just to say it's really hard for them to tag an ROI. And what we've found and what a lot of the draw is towards ThinkTank is because we can measure, because we can go in and say, how are you doing this before? And how long did that take you? How many people? How many hours? All those types of things. And you can measure that. And then by applying the structure to that very thing, you can come back then. It's essentially business process reengineering, but on a collaboration framework, on a framework of open engagement. And that is now measurable. And you can come back and you can say that investment of X thousands of dollars is going to give you a return of Y thousand. We're going to measure that. We can pilot that. We can demonstrate it. And so that is a major difference. And so we've found certainly that we don't use the word social in anything we do because it's not about being social. It's about creating amazing outcomes. It's about generating results. And that for us is a real difference.
Great. Let's go on to Aaron's question now. Can some of these advancements actually complicate the collaboration? For example, if the technology would perform faster than individuals can comfortably think and contribute to the process, is there any great equalizer, any secret for equalizing that? Anybody can take that one.
I can just give our quick experience. We specific to ThinkTank, we have not found that the technology is faster than the people. We've found that the people speed up and actually want to stay longer than the meeting was scheduled for because they want to contribute more. It's not pushing. It is receptive and allows people to work at their own speed, especially if you do the asynchronous approach. So no, not in the case of ThinkTank.
Okay, great. Kim, I'm going to direct this to you, and if you could just answer them really shortly because we are getting short on time. Do you have any case studies or examples that are being used of communities of practice? And if you could just name those, I think our readers can, our viewers can check into those.
Sure. Communities of practice are groups that do the same job or in the same value stream, like design drafting. We have 900 across the company. All engineers would be a community of practice. People who work in HR would be another. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's very helpful. I'm going to ask one quick question. I'm going to direct this to Jim because he's about my age, I think, and I don't actually ascribe to this philosophy, but we've heard how millennials are adopting structured collaborations. How do we sell it to those more advanced in years, the individuals with the influence and experience? Very quickly, Jim, you want to tackle that one?
Well,
that'll be our last question today.
Yeah, I think the thing is, trying new approaches is probably the best philosophical thing I would say, which is, if teams are using, we just heard great examples today from FMC, relative to some pretty complex things that they're doing. I think, imitation is a great form of flattery, but looking what others are doing, it would be probably my best recommendation to get everybody starting to look at this approach, because it is getting, again, more consensus building faster. I think that's the biggest net of what we see with this emerging category.
Great answer. Thank you for covering for us, Jim. I have to remind people all the time that it's the boomers that are buying most of the iPads out there, so they're not so far out of it as you think. Folks, I want to thank you all for being with us today. Jim, Kim, Matt, terrific presentation, and our audience asked some great questions. Glad to have them participating. Sorry about the technical glitches on the polls, but we'll catch you next time. This webinar has been recorded. A video and recap article will be emailed to you and available on CMSWire in a few days. If your company is interested in sponsoring a webinar, please email us at advertising@cmswire.com, and we'll be glad to get back to you. On behalf of ThinkTank and Aragon Research and FMC, I want to thank everybody for being with us today. This is Tom Murphy for Simpler Media Group and CMSWire signing off.